Good morning. It is 9:01 on March 21st, and I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. First, establish that we have a quorum. We have all 7 members here. The second item is the consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. All items on the consent agenda have been recommended for approval by staff with no opposition received to date. Since some items on the consent agenda may require public hearing, the commission will accept public comment on any item on the consent agenda in one public hearing. The only item is the minutes from last month's meeting. So I'm going to open it up for public comment. I'm going to close public comment and take a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Regular agenda, subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Item A, FP 22-06, the Enclave at Twin Oaks Edition, Section 2. The request for approval of a final plat of the Enclave at Twin Oaks Edition, Section 2, being 8.619 acres, located north of Grandview Drive and west of Canyon Rim Drive, south of Silver Spur Drive.
Good morning, Commission. Kyle Warren, Planning and Development. This is final plat, the Enclave at Twin Oaks Edition, Section 2, 8.619 acres, north of Grandview Drive, west of Canyon Rim Drive, District 6, Larry Miller, and Bonham neighborhood. And to the left is the aerial image of where they plan to do this. And this is the image of the final plat. I believe it is 31 lots that are being created out of this. Conformity with comprehensive plan and intent of purpose statements. The proposed final plat will have residential lots platted from it. The property will have Rs1 zoning consistent with Rs1 policies of the 2009 update to the city comprehensive plan. The final plat will conform to the intent of purpose statements outlined in Chapter 2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance. And our recommendation is to approve the final plat of the Enclave of Twin Oaks Edition Section 2, subject to 4 conditions of approval. No delinquent taxes on subject property. Prior to plat recordation, submit plans for approval illustrating the proposed installation of a water main and required service connections. 3, prior to recordation, submit plans for approval illustrating the proposed installation of a sewer main and required service connections. And 4, prior to recordation, submit plans for approval illustrating the required construction of Clearview Drive and Silver Spur Drive, meeting the requirements for an urban local roadway with a minimum of 40 feet of pavement. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for the staff? My only question, the aerial
Yes, sir.
doesn't seem to match up with the plat.
That's true. All of this, I believe, is the Enclave at Twin Oaks, Section 1. And correct me on this, Jeff, but I believe it was platted before, and this is Section 2. So the whole green line there, as you can see on the aerial, is the entirety of the Enclave at Twin Oaks. And this plat here is just Section 2 of that.
That's correct.
It's at the corner of Canyon Rim and Grandview. If you look back at the aerial, kind of in that southeast corner.
Yeah, the southern
Yes,
section
sir.
of it.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All
And
right.
there were no variances requested on this. So.
Anyone else have questions? All right, we're going to open it up for public comment.
Good morning, Russell with SKG. Would be happy to answer any questions. And I saw a billboard flash up somebody's birthday today, maybe? And maybe that's an old one?
Maybe it's tomorrow.
Oh, maybe it's tomorrow. Okay, it's early.
Happy
Perhaps
birthday.
it's
Happy
tomorrow.
birthday.
Yes. Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? All right, we're going to close public comment and take a motion or any thoughts.
Move to approve as presented. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Item B, FP 22-07, Prestonwood Addition. A request for approval of the final plat, Prestonwood Addition, Section 8A, located south of Sherwood Way along Appaloosa Trail, being 9.278 acres.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rafael Alvarado, Planning Department. This is the Prestonwood Addition, being 9.278 acres, south of Sherwood Way and Appaloosa Trail, outside of city limits. This is recently annexed land. It is in the RM1 zone district. The neighborhood is the vision plan. And there is also a master thoroughfare amendment that was recently approved in this part of town. This is the plat. It's a final plat. Prestonwood Addition, Section 8A. Staff recommends approval of FP 22-07, the Prestonwood Addition, Section 8A, being 9.278 acres, 287, subject to 6 conditions of approval. The first is a tax certificate. The second condition is that prior to plat recordations, prepare and submit plans for approval illustrating the required construction of Appaloosa Trail. The third condition is a drainage study. The fourth condition is prior to plat recordation, please note on the plat a fire hydrant and fire department access note.
Okay.
The fifth condition is a sewer main, the construction of a sewer main, and the sixth is a water main. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff?
Does anyone else have questions for the staff on this case? All right, we're going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please state your name and address or single-member district.
Russell Gully with SKG, just happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, we're going to close public comment.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. FP 22-08, Shannon Medical Center, Downtown Campus, Section 4. Request for approval of a replat Shannon Medical Center, Section 4, being 5.304 acres, located northeast of North Oaks Street, east of College, and East College Avenue, and variances from the subdivision ordinance, Chapter 10, 3A1, to allow Woodrow Street to maintain a 42-foot right-of-way, and Chapter 10, 3A2, to allow Woodrow Street to maintain a 33-foot paving width with curb and gutter.
This is the final plat, Shannon Medical Center, Section 4, 5.304 acres, to the east of Magdalen Street, west of Oak Street, and north of College Street. District 3, Harry Thomas, in the downtown neighborhood. This is an image of the final plat. And this is the variance requested. Woodrow Street's an urban local street, required 40 feet pavement or 36-foot pavement width, 4-foot sidewalk. And I will say it was recently changed to 40 feet right-of-way. That is correct, John. The last council, they approved that, or?
Yes. City Council did approve changes to the street widths as you all had recommended. And so you'll see a couple of times today where when these applications were filed, there was a variance request that is now no longer needed because of the ordinance change. But at the time these applications were filed, the variance request was necessary.
Okay.
And I will say I did make mistakes on these pavement widths and right-of-way widths. It should be 33 feet pavement width and 42-foot right-of-way width. So the only variance that we would be looking at today would be the paving width, because it's 33 instead of 36. But, and having 42 feet of right-of-way, they don't need to go forward with the variance now, because it now meets the 40-foot criteria that John just explained. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare, or be injurious to other property. Woodrow Street has existing pavement with curbs and gutters that is sufficient for traffic in this area. The conditions upon the request for a variance are unique to the property for which the variance is sought and are not applicable generally to other property. The plat in question is infill, which will not generate more vehicular traffic in this area. Woodrow Street is a cul-de-sac that provides access to SAISD parking to the north and Shannon parking to the south. And I will go back here. It's to the north up here. You can see it just dead ends there. And I forget the name of the campus that's to the north. I know it's the old, I think, ASU campus.
Central Freshman.
Central. So it's just their parking and then Shannon parking, which is already existing. They're just platting this into one lot. Because of the particular physical surrounding, shape, or topographical conditions of the specific property involved, a particular hardship to the owner would result. Widening the street by additional 3 feet would then create an irregular jog at the intersection of Woodrow Street and North Oak Street on the south side of Woodrow. The variance will not in any significant way vary the provisions of applicable ordinances. Staff does not believe that the applicable ordinances will be significantly varied if the variance was granted. Our recommendation is for commission to approve the first replat of final plat of Shannon Medical Center Section 4, and to approve the requested variances subject to 3 conditions of approval shown after this slide. 1 is no delinquent taxes on subject property. 2 is to obtain approval of paving width variance from the Planning Commission. And 3 is actually irrelevant because of the right-of-way that we discussed earlier, so it's only actually 2 conditions of approval on this. Sorry if that was kind of minced, but any questions on this at all?
Anyone have questions for the staff? All right, thank you.
No problem.
We're going to open it up for public comment.
Good morning, Russell with SKG. Shannon Hospitals, they're kind of in the process of evaluating and doing an expansion on the main hospital. And as part of that, they were needing to add a kind of a central plant utility feature across from the main campus building there. So as part of this, we're just platting and cleaning up an area for the Shannon Hospital. So that's kind of the reason for this. And then they were right, we're kind of in this transition time from the old original ordinances about paving and right-of-way widths to today. So I do believe, and maybe Mr. James can clarify this, but I don't know that we need a variance on the street width, because per the new paving widths, I think it's 26 or 30 feet is the minimum width. So I believe we're good on right-of-way and pavement width?
That's right, yeah. We were just talking about that. It doesn't meet the standard width, but you'll remember that the ordinance has a standard width for new street construction, but a minimum width that's lower than that for an existing street. And Russell's right, this does meet that minimum already, so actually no variance is needed in this case.
Okay.
So we would just ask for your approval and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, we're going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve. Pardon me?
Since it's not required, I don't think so, but I mean, if you want to clarify it in the motion, you can.
Make a motion to approve the replat. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the replat. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Item D, RP 2208, first replat of Lot 6, Lake Drive subdivision, a request for approval of a first replat of Lot 6, Lake Drive subdivision being 4.294 acres northwest of Lake Drive and West 37th Street, and a variance from Chapter 103A2 of the subdivision ordinance to allow Lake Drive to maintain a 30-foot paving width with no curb and gutter.
All right. Jeff Fisher, Chief Planner. This is 4.307 acres. The zoning is Ranch and Estate. It's northwest of Lake Drive and West 37th Street, District 2, Tom Thompson and Riverside. We've approved about 4 variances on this street already. So just the Lake Drive in this area with text dot counts over the years have served more as a local road than a collector. So basically what they're doing is they're replatting this lot into 4 lots for single-family homes. So Ranch and Estate zoning requires 1 acre. So each lot will be 1 acre and have the 150 feet of lot frontage. And then, as mentioning, the variance would be to allow the 30-foot paving to continue in lieu of the required 50 feet. Now, again, well, actually, in this case, they would need the variance because Lake Drive is still a collector road. So that's correct, John? Okay. 60 notifications went out. We didn't receive any responses. This is looking north on Lake Drive and then south on Lake Drive. So it really serves as more of a rural ranch estate housing area, not an urban area. So again, even though that's a collector road, one day it's going to get more intense, but right now we're okay with supporting the variance on the 30-foot paving width. This is west at the property. Staff's in support of the plat and the variance. For the plat, it's Ranch and Estate zoning. The future land use, half of it is commercial on the west side as you get towards the Bryant side, but again, that's only applicable if you do a zone change. The current zoning, Ranch and Estate, prevails for building permits, so they'll be able to move forward. And the replat is consistent with our purpose statements in the subdivision ordinance. Looking at the paving width, again, text dot counts are low, so it does serve more as a local road. It's an infill development. Lake Drive is definitely adequate for 4 more homes there. And again, making them do another 10 additional feet of pavement would be probably, in this case, it'd be like 8 feet because it's 48 feet now. I think I'm right about that. Would just be cost prohibitive to have to put in curbing just for a few homes. So staff recommends approval of a first replat of Lot 6, Lake Drive, approval of a variance to maintain a 30-foot paving width without curb and gutter for Lake Drive, an urban collector street, subject to 5 conditions of approval, and they are tax certificate, some minor change, just putting the owner-developer block. There's 2 owners on this, so just showing his husband and also show the wife's name on there. Install any necessary water and wastewater service lines. 4 is a drainage study, and 5 is, again, the variance condition. So if the variance is approved, this condition won't be required. Any questions or comments for staff? This one's pretty straightforward, I think.
Anyone have questions for the staff? Open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully with SKG would ask your approval of this with the variance as requested, and then we'll just give the city engineer a heads up that we'll be asking for a deferral on the drainage study since all of these lots are 1 acre, they can kind of deal with those on a case-by-case basis as they come in for a building permit. Be happy to answer any questions.
We just wanted to confirm the city engineer was okay with that deferral on the drainage study. Okay. So guess we'd keep it in for now, but the way the conditions worded, they could request that deferral, I believe, after the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? We're going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion or ask questions?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
My mic's off.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. RP 2209, Logan Greer, Section 2. Request for approval of a residential replat of Logan Greer, Section 2, being 0.185 acres located at the southwest corner of East 11th Street and Pecan Street. Variances from Chapter 103A2 of the subdivision ordinance to allow East 11th Street and Pecan Street to maintain the existing paving width with curb and gutter.
Good morning, Rafael Alvarado, Planning. This is Logan Greer, Section 2. It is at the southwest corner of 11th Street and Pecan Street. It is District 3, Harry Thomas in the Reagan neighborhood. It is a replat. It is zoned RS2, two-family residential. We have received 2 letters out of the 33 notification letters that were mailed out to property owners within a 200-foot buffer of the property. One letter in support at parcel ID 14, adjacent to the property to the south, and the second letter in opposition at property ID 19. Here is the proposed replat, Logan Greer, Section 2. And staff recommends approval of the replat of Logan Greer, Section 2, being 0.167 acres, subject to 4 conditions of approval. The first condition is a tax certificate. The second condition is a variance. The second and third conditions are variances on paving widths for East 11th Street and Pecan Street. However, in a previous case, we've established that with the revisions to the paving width standards, those variances are no longer necessary. The fourth condition is, prior to plat recordation, submit a revised plat illustrating the reservation of necessary easements to encompass the existing sewer main crossing the property. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff?
I have a few questions. Anyone have a question? Okay, so what triggered the replat of this lot?
I believe the building has been demolished.
Okay.
Yeah. The previous building, so it requires a replat.
So they're going to build a new structure on this?
Yes, I believe so.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Rafael. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward, state your name and address or single member district.
Russell with SKG. They were going in for a building permit, and the legal description has 2 parallel offsets in it. So the subdivision ordinance allows you to only have 1 parallel offset in the description. So it had functioned for years and years kind of as that property, but because of the new regulations, they had to go through the platting process to put a house back on there. So be happy to answer any other questions.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. Take a motion.
I have a question of staff. So on the 3 requirements that were, or the 4 requirements, number 3 was the variances. So if we make a motion to approve, do we need to remove number 3, or is that automatically done, or do we need to state it?
The road width variances that are on the conditions of approval.
John, you go first. Go ahead. No, I was going to say, I think in the past, we've set it up so that it's either or. So the condition reads right now, they can, because they could still come in and pave it if they want to, or they could seek a variance. I guess the question is, do we just take off that condition now or not, or could we just leave it as either or, and that way we've already, either maybe in the motion we omit the variance, or we just leave it open since we know it's going away anyway.
It wouldn't seem necessary to grant a variance if we've changed the ordinances to allow what's existing.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Just
to make it clean, remove
reading
it?
the text of it, I think we can just eliminate it completely.
Yeah.
So eliminate number 3. Is it number 3?
What were what
It's
condition
number 3,
numbers?
I believe.
2 and 3.
Can you pull those back up, please?
They're not on
Or
the
is there no-
Slide, but they're in your staff report.
So 2 and 3. Item 1 is the tax certificate. Item 4 is submit a revised plat for the illustrating the reservation of the necessary easement to encompass the existing sewer main crossing the property.
Okay, so we're closed for public, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve and remove conditions 2 and 3.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve striking conditions 2 and 3 from the staff's recommendations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. RP 22-10, first replat of lots 5 and 6, Block 20, Prairie Edition. Request for approval of a first replat of lots 5 and 6, Block 20, Prairie Edition, being .663 acres, west of South Post Street and Tarver Street, and variances from the subdivision ordinance, Chapter 10-3A1, to allow South Poe to maintain 36-foot right-of-way, and from Chapter 10-3A2 to allow South Poe to maintain an 18-foot paving width without curb and gutter.
All right, thanks, Commissioners. Our next case today is first replat in lots 5 and 6, Block 20 Prairie Edition. So this is a unique situation. These are they're two remainders of original platted lots. So they were long and skinny, and then over time, people started to sell them off, doing illegal splits without coming in for subdivision plats. So what this will do is it'll clean this up and turn these two remainder pieces you can see here into by the black line in the middle into one lot, and they'll build a house. Pretty straightforward though, Rs1 zoning, so that'll allow that. This is in District 3, Harry Thomas and the Fort Concho neighborhood, and they're going to a couple variances as well, even with the new standards on the right-of-way and the paving width. They'll get to those in a minute. So zoning's Rs1. There's the pretty big lot for one home, but again, they don't have a lot of frontage. So South Poe is a very short end of the street, which hits Tarver and then turns into an L shape there. So most of their development is going to be on that corner. There is some floodway very close to the bottom, but nowhere close to where they're going to build that home. So that note is in there as well about getting engineering approval if they were ever to build close to that. They're requesting a 36-foot right-of-way, 50 feet's required, and an 18-foot paving width. 40, again, a new street would have been 40 or 36. An existing street would be 26. They're way under at 18 feet, so we'll go through that now. 60 notices were mailed out. The owner to the north, I just passed out that letter, opposed it. I'm not sure why. I may have just saw that in the mail. So that's the one opposition letter counted. So this is a unique area. Two things to note as you're looking at your variance decision today. As I mentioned, a new right-of-way would need to be 50 feet, so that would be another 7 feet of their incremental half to get to 50 on their side. But this is a very short street. It's only about 300 feet on South Poe. The other thing to note is the Spencer addition to the east showed the right-of-way only at 36 feet, which it is now. So it was basically platted that way. It was already deficient. So again, I think if this was a bigger area and South Poe was to continue, we may have some concerns about it. But I think given the short distance, the right-of-way is not going to really provide the city with any benefits. On the street, it tapers, so it's 20 feet at the north end, and then it's 18 feet at the south end. Now, the subdivision ordinance, even the new ordinance, requires a minimum of 26 feet. And that's built in there for fire and emergency vehicles, but that's based on counting it from the center line of the street. So the fact that all of the majority of the 18 feet are on their side of the street, we're going to support a partial variance to get up to 20 feet. So basically pave an additional 2 feet. 20 feet is the minimum for a fire truck. So we're okay with that. When the east side goes to develop, they'll put in the other 6 feet and get up to 26, if that makes sense. So the other thing to note here is there's a taper. So it is 20 feet on the north, so they've already met that. and then there's little blotches that kind of stick out at 20 feet, and then other parts were only 18. So really, if we make them do an extra 2 feet, they're only going to actually be doing a full 2 feet at certain points. Other parts might be 6 inches, other parts might be 1 foot, so they're just basically filling in that dirt that you see there. Good example is where you can see the bottom where that, in front of that shed. So that's probably 20 feet, so they just got to bring it up a little bit and then taper it. And like I say, when you get to the north, it's already 20 feet. So there's probably a better example of it there. So you can see where that fence is. There's already pavement on the north side that goes to 20 feet inside of it. This plat conforms with the comp plan and the purpose statements. And then the right-of-way, I think I've explained that already. So it's only 340 feet long, and it was platted at 36 feet. So we're good with the right-of-way. And then again, the paving, if they had to do another 11 feet of paving, that's going to be very cost prohibitive. Also, there's a home on the east side, and I think there's a patio that encroaches into the right-of-way. So it would open up a lot of messy issues if they had to put another 6 feet, and then they'd have to ask that owner to knock their home off. So just pave the extra 2 feet, get it to 20, let the fire truck make the turn, we're good. Staff recommends approval of the plat, approval of the variance for the 36-foot right-of-way, and approval of a partial variance. So get up from 18 feet up to 20, and then that's it. So requiring an additional 2 feet of paving, and then subject to 4 conditions of approval. You got the tax cert, water and wastewater, the right-of-way variance, and the paving variance. Any questions?
Anyone have questions for the staff?
So what happens if there needs to be a truck go down there right now?
That's a good point. I'm not sure. I think it's one of those things where anything that's already in place is legal non-conforming until there's a trigger. And so the trigger is now that they're platting, they need to bring it up to the code.
How wide is Tarver?
Tarver, I believe, is, well, I didn't measure that, but I believe Tarver is at least 26 feet, I would have to guess, when I went out there.
Okay.
So Tarver's probably okay. It's just a really narrow street that was kind of left over from platting over the years.
Yep.
And so this is the last guy that just wants to put one home in the middle of it.
Okay. I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Russell with SKG would ask for your approval as presented with the variances requested, and be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Russell?
And your client's good with putting in 2 feet of paving?
Yes, they'll work that in. We'll have a discussion with the city engineer trying to figure out how we just kind of go scab that on to the edge of it there, but yes. Thank
Great.
you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. Anyone else have questions or wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. Related comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. City Council has final authority for approval of comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. Item A, 200 block of South Bell Street. There are 2 items. I guess I'm going to read both of these in.
That's right.
CP 22-01, the 200 block of South Bell Street, a request for approval of an amendment to the comprehensive plan, changing certain lands from the neighborhood to the commercial future land use, being .436 acres located on the west side of South Bell Street between Culberson and Bryan Street. Z 2205, 200 block of South Bell Street, a request for approval of a rezoning from the single-family residential to the general commercial zoning district, being .436 acres located on the west side of South Bell Street between Culberson Street and Bryan Street.
Rafael Alvarado with planning. So this is the satellite image of the proposed properties to be rezoned and the change in the vision plan. It is mid-block along the 200th block of South Bell Street. It is District 3, Harry Thomas in the Fort Concho East neighborhood. And the properties total to 0.436 acres. So here are the existing future land use map and the zoning district map on the right. The proposed changes are for the zone district to become general commercial, and the vision plan commercial. So as you can see, South Bell Street and the majority of Bell Street is an interesting issue where there's a mixture of zone districts all along the corridor. However, staff's interpretation is to protect the residential neighborhood on the west of Bell Street, and historically to allow a mixture of heavier and general commercial districts on the east of Bell Street. So staff mailed out 21 notification letters to the property owners within a 200-foot buffer. There, we have received one letter in support, being the southernmost property on the corner of Bryan and Bell. Now we get to the images of the site. This is a close-up of the property. Here you have a view from across the street that shows 227 right here, and this corner property, which was recently rezoned, well, relatively in 2018, to the neighborhood commercial district. It's the pink that you see. Yeah, and that's the only difference in that side of the block. This is a view across the street. These are views along north and south of Bell Street, of the South Bell Street. So staff conducted an analysis using these 7 criteria for amendments to the zoning map, as well as the comprehensive plan amendment, which is a component of the zoning map. Staff recommends denial of Z22-05, 227 South Bell Street, 0.436 acres, for a request to amend the comprehensive plan district as well as the zone district. Do the commissioners have any questions for staff?
Can you go back to the colored slide that shows the property, please?
This one or the one before?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Raf, do you mind if I share a few things? Just because I worked on one of the cases, just to help. Okay, that was good. I just from my experience and history here, I just wanted you guys to, he explained it well, but originally the zone, like most cities in West Texas, the zoning was passed first before we ever had a comprehensive plan. So what Raphael was mentioning is a lot of the area west of Bell Street did have pockets of CG or CN types of zoning. In 2003 and then updated in 2009, we brought in our comprehensive plan, which is the vision plan, the left picture, and then that made that whole area neighborhood, because there were still a lot of homes there. So there were pockets of zoning, but there was also a lot of homes. And then I think it was the 2018 case, wasn't mine, but one of my colleagues did the neighborhood center at that corner, and then I think they brought in a CN zoning. So what you're really reviewing today is, do you believe it's appropriate to add more commercial, and this would be red, into that area west of Bell Street, when the comprehensive plan is mostly yellow and has some pink there, also in the context of some of the zone changes that were done before. So that's really what you're trying to evaluate. Is it appropriate or is it not appropriate to bring more commercial on the west side of Bell Street?
And I apologize, I might not have heard this correctly, but I thought they were trying to go to general, not heavy. Is that not correct?
Yes, and I was going to add to what Jeff just said, that all of the, and as you can see there, all of the zoning on that west side of Bell Street is either office commercial or neighborhood commercial, which are our lightest commercial designations. And so while the question wasn't before us or you for neighborhood commercial or office zoning, that would be a different conversation. We might support, we might not. We haven't looked at that in detail, but the general commercial or heavy commercial are both heavier zonings.
Right.
And that's what we wouldn't want to see cross Bell Street into that neighborhood side.
Okay.
Because currently, all of the heavy commercial or general commercial are on that east side of Bell.
Sure.
That makes sense.
Did the applicant ask, or like, is there a reason why they were going specifically general and not neighborhood?
Well, I'd like to add that the applicants are here, but when I was working with them, the one major need for them may have been the outdoor storage component, which is limited in the office commercial and the neighborhood commercial, being the intent for that to be compatible with neighborhood zones. The general commercial zone district allows a much broader range of uses. So if you have any specific questions, the applicants are here.
So can they do neighborhood commercial with a special use in order to be able to get the outdoor storage that they are requesting? That's subject to just their intended use, and if they sold the property, it would go away?
I don't know if you guys know the answer to that. We'd probably have to research that a little. I don't believe it would be allowed through a special use. Probably not a conditional use. It would likely have to be a variance
Okay.
to the outdoor storage restrictions.
And then, John, can you put a limit on the variance? Like, again, just subject to that owner of the property and if it changed hands or not?
The zoning board of adjustment who would grant that variance has leeway to put limits on it. I don't know if they can limit it to a particular owner. They could limit it to a particular use or a particular kind of operational parameters. I'm not sure if they can limit it to a individual owner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we can research further, but I think the issue is the zoning table in the ordinance for outdoor storage limits CG to 10%. And so I don't think they can do through a special use or anything. If they had an acre, they could do a PD, but they don't have an acre.
Okay.
So I don't think there's a way around that, but we can research for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I would just add that part of our concern is this is a neighborhood, and I think one of the reasons we would be opposed to a heavier commercial is the outdoor storage. So I don't want to give the impression that we would support some type of variance or conditional use if that was possible.
Okay.
What is a neighborhood center? I'm not familiar with that. I mean, it says.
It's a less intense retail, commercial zoning.
Raphael's correct. That's actually one of the big differences. So if you're zoned CN or neighborhood center, by the way, is a future land use, and then the zoning that fits within it is called CN, neighborhood commercial, but it's the same idea. So CN only allows you to have outdoor storage within 4 feet of a building wall. You can't just put it wherever you want on the property. So that's where I think the applicants were stuck. So if they do a CG, they could put 10% anywhere they want on the property. They're not limited to within 4 feet of the wall.
So the picture of the shop type building, is that on the subject property or is it on the pink property?
This stuff across the street?
No, go back one. So that little shop, and it's been there forever,
This.
that garage to the right of the post, yes. What property does that fall on?
Let's see.
The applicants or the neighbors?
Go back one.
Yeah, I think that is part of I think it would be number 9. And then the one next to it would be 7.
Can you go back one? Yeah. Oh.
Right
Yep.
here. Maybe
Because
it is.
the shop
Or is that the neighbor property?
seems to be on the neighbor's property. Okay,
It's the neighbor to the west, it looks
Yes.
like.
okay.
So then that is the neighborhood commercial zone district right here.
No, that's single family.
No, that's the one that got turned
Oh, is it
light
neighbor, is
purple.
it?
Mhm.
Okay.
That was the one in 2018 that they rezoned.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions for the staff? I'm going to open it up for public comment.
We are the applicants, Natalie and Mauricio Valdez. And we have a picture here, and we wanted to share with y'all.
Okay.
So you could better understand our vision. This would be the offices of Mavico Electric,
Okay.
which is our company. And right now, we operate from home. So we just need our offices, you know, and we...
I'm sorry, can I ask you to speak into the mic so we can pick that up?
Okay. So I just wanted to show y'all, you know, what... When y'all say heavy commercial, to me is like all the other buildings. And, well, when I read the 7 requirements that y'all have, I saw that, okay, well, we are not gonna have noise. We don't, you know, all we want is to have our office building there. And then the reason we applied for the general commercial is because of the standard ratio, the
outdoor storage.
well, not exactly well, yes, the outdoor storage where we would have, with commercial general, we would have the 1,000 feet or 10%. So can I just show y'all this,
Yes, ma'am.
please, so y'all
Please
can
do.
better understand our vision?
100%.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is what we're talking about the, why we didn't do commercial neighborhood, because this would be only 50 feet. And this would be fenced in. So basically the storage that we need would be fenced in according to the compliance.
Yes, ma'am.
And that would be for our trucks, our enclosed trailer, and our flatbed trailer, which would only, you know, be there when we're not operating, when we're not, during non-business hours, which would be the weekend. We just need somewhere to protect our property, which would be just fenced in.
This might be a silly question, but I really don't know the answer to this. So since it's a flatbed trailer, an enclosed trailer, they're work trucks, and they're movable, is that actually considered outdoor storage? Because they move from location, it's not like they've got, that does not sound like storage to me.
The question for the staff was if they're using the fenced-in outdoor area to park vehicles, is that considered a storage area?
No, I believe the ordinance exempts parking of vehicles. So if that's all they're doing, then that would not be considered outdoor storage. That's correct.
Okay. So
Plus, these vehicles are storage. They would not be there during business hours, which would be Monday through Friday, because all these vehicles would be out on the field.
Right. So
Right.
our question to the staff basically was, since those are operational and leave the property, they wouldn't be considered storage. So since the staff seems to be in opposition of giving you the general commercial, would we be able to fit you into neighborhood commercial, even though, you know, you don't have as much storage around your structure for, you know, rolls of wire or whatever the case might be?
Electrical
If
conduit.
you're actually just utilizing that for vehicles, trailers, et cetera,
it's not storage.
it's not considered storage. So
So I think the zoning that neighborhood center zoning, neighborhood commercial would work, wouldn't it, John?
Does that
Yeah.
sound right to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the setbacks are the same. The only difference is the bulk, so I think they're limited to, and that's a fairly big lot. I'm assuming you're not covering more than 60% of the lot with your office
No.
building?
No.
Okay.
So
And then
I
you
can
have to meet the
show you
setbacks as well.
So you can, yes.
So does that make sense to y'all, since your vehicles leave the property? We're not considering that
Yes.
storage, so that will like.
Basically, that was the purpose of me bringing that drawing,
Right.
so.
No, and we appreciate that. Thank you. It's so much easier visualizing it.
Yes, so y'all could have a visual image of what, you know, that is the purpose of that fenced area.
There's
Now-
the distinction, the difference being if if you had construction materials, electrical materials that you were storing outside, that.
No,
that's what
sir, we
they're-
would not want, yes.
That's what the city is trying to avoid having done
Right.
on this site because it backs up to residential homes.
and
But a-
then-
But a parking area
Right.
is sufficient,
And we
Right.
wouldn't want to have any of our
Sure.
material exposed,
Yeah.
you know, to theft, weather, or et cetera.
Right. Question the staff, so the fence that they have planned around the perimeter to protect their belongings, that's not an issue in neighborhood commercial, correct?
No, as long as that it stays within, I believe it's 4 feet in the front yard, that's fine. They can put a fence there.
Okay.
Okay, so do we need to change the zoning request that they've made? How do we proceed?
You are able, under our ordinance, to approve what they've requested or anything less intensive. So since they've requested general commercial, you could approve that, or you could approve neighborhood commercial or office commercial, anything less intensive.
Okay, so between neighborhood commercial and office commercial,
I mean, I just
But-
feel like if the property right next to it was zoned neighborhood commercial, why?
it would
That
make
wouldn't be-
sense. There's
yeah.
an area north there that's office, is why I was.
Right.
I think from an intensity standpoint, they're very similar.
Right.
What could be done in office that cannot be done in neighborhood?
The big difference is retail. So actually, they could do.
Probably broader to have neighborhood than office. You could have
Yeah, if
office.
they ever sold it one
That's
day,
right.
then they'd have a little more, we call it highest and best use. They'd have a little more property rights with CN versus CO, but
Okay.
their business would be allowed in both.
Okay.
So would neighborhood commercial work for you guys?
Yes, I believe so, if that's what, you know.
Again,
Okay.
it would give you
Those
the
are our
ability to
needs.
do what you wanted to. It's just, again, the only limitation is, again, keeping your supplies, like rolls of wiring, et cetera, which doesn't sound like you'd want to anyway.
don't want
so-
to.
Okay.
You want that inside?
Especially right now with
Yeah.
prices, you know,
Yeah.
through the roof.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Before we
Okay.
vote, could we just give staff maybe 30 seconds just to verify that there's no issues, hiccups with the storage, but I think they said there's going to be, I think it's the same.
I'm gonna continue public comment, if you don't mind, and make sure
No
there's
problem.
no one else that wants to speak while the
Thank you
staff
for
reviews.
listening. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this case?
Just want to say one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
By the way, my husband is the one that did this.
That designed it?
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes,
Looks great.
Excuse us.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay. No one else speaking, I'm going to close public comment.
Wait just a minute.
We're going to let the staff review the zoning and make sure that we're okay to,
So actually,
Maybe
the
propose.
storage is the same, so they'd still be allowed to, you know, if you're putting a ladder or some buckets or some bricks, you could go within 4 feet of the building wall. So you still don't lose any rights on that. And actually, if you do CO, you take away the retail and some of those other uses like an oil change that you might not want.
Right.
And they can actually, their floor area ratio is bigger too, so they can add more buildings in the future with CO, which might help them in the future versus CN where they'd be limited to 60%. So they have some advantages of CO. And then for staff, we're also not worried about retail and other types of uses going in there. So that might be a win-win to do CO.
yes, sir. Open it up for public comment.
Sorry about that. Jeff, what is the fence height in CO? Because I think they're looking at a security fence for their
Yeah.
property, and I think the 4 foot might be a challenge, but I'm not 100% sure.
Same, yeah, CO or CN or CG, it's all 4 feet, excuse me. 4 feet maximum in the front yard, whether you're CO or CN, so that's the same.
You need more than a 4-foot fence? In the back. In the back?
Yes, so the first 25 feet back, they can't be taller than 4 feet, but once they go back past 4 feet, they can go 6, 7, 8, it's fine.
Okay. You're good with either zoning? Okay. Well, does anyone wish to make a motion or have more questions?
So I would ask I would ask them which would be better,
Yeah, do you guys mind coming back up for public comment? I'm going to open public comment again.
So the difference that Jeff just spoke of between office commercial and neighborhood commercial, would you have a preference for that? He was saying, the office commercial does not allow retail, but it may allow you more area
That's
that
right.
you can use.
So if you want to expand the square footage of your
Of your
building,
building.
you
Later
could
in the
add more
Yes.
in the
later.
future if you had office.
Yes, I think that sounds good.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Thank you for
Great. Thank
Okay.
you.
recommendation.
I think that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Turned out positive.
Okay.
All right. Anyone wish to make a motion? Close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve office commercial for this property, which allows parking and that type of storage. Sorry, Sam.
And I should note that this is a combined, so it is a
Yes,
request
sir,
to
on
change
both of them.
the comprehensive plan designation as well.
Yes.
So if that's part of the motion.
For Z2205 and CP 2201.
So your comp plan would be neighborhood center, not commercial, not the more intense commercial, correct?
Correct.
It would be office commercial.
For the zoning.
For
but
the
then
zoning.
The future land use plan would then need to be neighborhood center, just like the property to the south.
Okay,
Oh.
yes,
Okay.
correct.
Anyone want to second that? Sam, you? Okay, very good. So we have a motion and a second to approve a change to the comprehensive plan to neighborhood center and to rezone these properties to office commercial. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0. All right, rezonings. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings. Z2204, 430 West Avenue X, a request for approval of a rezoning from the single-family residential zoning district to the neighborhood commercial zoning district, being .149 acres located at 430 West Avenue X.
Okay, Jeff Fisher again. This is a fairly straightforward zoning on this one, 430 West Avenue X. The comprehensive plan for this area was neighborhood center for a long time, since 2009. So as you get further south on Bryant, the first 3 lots in, usually on both sides of Bryant, way back, council made the intent that they wanted it to be commercial, but not as intense as the commercial downtown. So it is neighborhood center right now, but a lot of those lots were sitting as RS1 because they had homes there, and then TxDOT punched in the highway, and a lot of those homes, as people sold them off over the years, became commercial. So kind of like HTO and Dollar Tree and all those places. So this is another one that's looking at doing an RS1 change to CN. So that's what we're looking at today. Neighborhood center is in the future land use, and then the current zoning is RS1. I counted about 5 in my research over the last 10 years where we've rezoned from RS1 to CN within 3 lots on either side of Bryant. So you can see it on the zoning map, all those pink, these were all done within the last 10 years and changed from RS1 to CN zoning. Dollar Tree's down here, H2O is up here, so this is just another commercial rezoning that follows that street pattern. 22 notices were mailed out. We didn't receive any in support or opposition. Here's a picture of the property. So it's that last lot with the driveway next to this home. They will have to put up a privacy fence when they come in for their building permits along the east side of the property to screen from that home, but otherwise they would be allowed to have retail commercial services there. And again, these are neighborhood commercial and not CG. This is east at the property. This is looking north. This is an existing, I think it's an electrical place, but it's zoned for retail, that little plaza to the north. and then this is
company.
looking south. We've also put a note, unless TxDOT, they haven't given us construction plans yet, but unless TxDOT puts in the sidewalk within the next 6 months or before they get a permit, they'll have to put in a sidewalk along there. Again, that's not subject to today, but we just wanted to note that for record. The CN zoning is compatible with the neighborhood center future land use. The property complies with the CN zoning and is compatible with the surrounding area. And the property remains vacant as RS1, so one of the criteria is looking at, is there any reason to change the conditions? And we believe here that CN would be more appropriate close to Bryant than probably putting in a home there. Staff recommends approval of the zoning from RS1 to CN, and then the note about the sidewalk. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. What is the width of the lot?
I'm glad you brought that up. So the width of the lot is 47 feet. It needs to be 50. However, through the subdivision ordinance and as outlined in other ordinances, when TxDOT comes in or a government entity comes in to acquire a right-of-way,
Yes.
that still allows the lot to be legally platted and the zoning to move forward, even if it's less than, only if it was taken legally through a right-of-way, and it was. So we
Okay.
still believe at 47 feet, that'll be sufficient for them to put a retail building there in the future.
Okay. Any other questions for the staff? Thank you, Jeff. We're going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. Can you stop on that slide? Go back one more. So the only concern I have about go back to the comprehensive plan. Yeah. So the only concern I have about rezoning these lots that front on Bryant, I think everyone would acknowledge that commercial makes sense on this frontage. The depth of these lots is a little concerning to me. There's not a lot you can do with a 47-foot wide lot on Bryant Street with commercial.
And they have applied for a variance, I believe, on the setback from Bryant. I think they're off by maybe 5 feet or something. It's close. I haven't seen the application, but I know it's in. So we will be looking at doing an administrative variance on the setback.
Well, and I'm speaking in more general terms, that you're looking at about 150 feet. It looks like that the comprehensive plan has allotted for commercial frontage on Bryant, and we have a third of that here. So I'm not opposed to rezoning it. I'm just concerned about the type of development that we see along this stretch, allowing these narrow lots to get rezoned and developed before maybe the better plan to be having 3 lots and greater depth that would allow for retail and parking in front, and the more conventional, less intense commercial development that we would like to see probably along this stretch. So
That's fair. I think all of these uses would have to be very small. I believe he came in for a DRC.
Yeah, Jeff, he came in for a washateria he plans to put in over here, and he is correct. He is going forward with the ZBA variance, which I'm working on.
okay.
He knows it's going to be a really tight fit there.
Yeah.
But it was cheap land because of that.
Yep.
So hence
So-
where we're at.
Okay.
What about the TxDOT sidewalk? That's a considerable expense to put on a landowner, knowing that TxDOT is eventually going to be doing it. So where do the sidewalks currently stop in that neighborhood? Do we have any idea? Obviously, there's one by Dollar General, one by HTO or whatever.
It's stubbed out from the street.
Yeah, so just.
Yeah, and this is,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry.
No, I just, because with 6 months doesn't give, I don't feel the applicant enough time to allow TxDOT to do their job without having to financially take that responsibility, personally.
Well, and I use that as an average. If they came in for a permit, like, it would be whenever they come in for a permit anytime before their final occupancy. I think 2 things on this is the new ordinance would require a sidewalk anyway along arterials and collectors.
Right.
And I think and again, TxDOT's had a plan where they've started to fill in their sidewalk gaps over time. They had a map that they had given staff maybe about a year and a half ago that kind of showed their plans from 2018 on up to 2023. My understanding from talking to one of our previous engineers, he said that two things. In this area, their plans don't necessarily equate to their actual, like their map is not the same as a approved construction plan. So they, maybe in a sense, they probably shouldn't have given us that map, because then it kind of sent staff, oh, okay, they're gonna do this. But if their budget runs out of money or they get delayed, which is I think what happened along Bryant, it could be several years or more. And so then we go back to the new sidewalk ordinance, which would require it anyway.
Sure.
We
And
just wanted to give them an out. If TxDOT happened to
Does.
come in the next 2 months and do it, then they would be off the hook. But if
Right.
we haven't received any plans from them.
Right, and I do understand the importance of the sidewalk, because that is more of a walking neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, again, a sidewalk is a considerable expense when you're looking at other things going into that
And
property.
let's clarify what was said. The sidewalk requirement isn't enforced until CO. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, technically, they would have to show it on the site plan when they bring in their plans for development.
Right.
But
But
yeah.
they don't have to put it in until they're going for a CS.
That's correct.
So they have whatever that time frame is.
And if at any point
It's
during
probably
that.
going to be one of the last things to go in anyway, I would think.
Right, and if at any point during that time, TxDOT did have approved plans and started moving forward,
They could do
then we
it.
would say, well, you don't have to do it, since
Yeah,
they're already
okay.
working on it.
Okay,
Sidewalks in.
thank you.
Okay. Any other
To
questions?
make sure that was clear, even if TxDOT hasn't put it in,
Yes.
but has already approved construction plans and are moving forward, we wouldn't make them do it at that point.
Okay.
If it's already a done deal
Right.
moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone want to make a motion or have other questions?
Do you have the conditions again, Jeff?
Do you have the condition slide, Jeff?
Oh, it's straight zoning, so no conditions.
Oh,
Okay.
So your decision today would be, do you want to approve a zone change from RS1 to CN?
Okay, I'll move forward with the motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Z 2206, 1740 La Follette Street. Request for approval of a rezoning from single-family residential to the low-rise multifamily residential zoning district, being .328 acres located at 1740 La Follette Street.
Rafael Alvarado with planning. This is 1740 La Follette Street, 0.328 acres at the northeast corner of Schroeder and La Follette. It is in District 4, Lucy Gonzalez, the Paul Ann neighborhood. The current vision plan is commercial, however, that has no impact on the residential zone district designation. And that is due to its adjacency to Houston Hart Highway to the south. The proposed zone district is from RS1 single family to RM1 low-rise multifamily. The intent is to build a duplex or a triplex structure, both of which are allowed in the RM1 district. 33 notification letters were mailed out to property owners within the 200-foot buffer of the subject property. Only one returned in support at parcel 10 on the westernmost boundary of the buffer. These are images. On the left, you have an image of the lots from Schroeder Street here on the right to the full extent of the block. This is across the property on the right-hand side. This is a view across Houston Hart Highway and back down Schroeder Street. So we conducted a analysis based on the 7 criteria found in the Code of Ordinances pertaining to changes in the zoning map. And staff concludes, we recommend approval of Z22-06, 1740 Lafayette Street being 0.328 acres, subject to no conditions of approval. I apologize there. It's a straight recommendation to recommend approval of the zone change.
All right, anyone have questions for the staff? Thank you, Raphael. I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward, state your name and address or single-member district. I'm going to close public comment. Take a motion.
Make a motion to approve removing any conditions.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve with no conditions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, 7-0. Conditional uses, the Planning Commission has final authority for approval of conditional uses. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. CU 22-07, 3182 North Bryant Boulevard, a request for approval of a conditional use to allow vehicle repair in the General Commercial Zoning District, being 2.476 acres located at 3182 North Bryant Boulevard.
All right, our next case today is a conditional use for a vehicle repair shop. This is going to be for Caliber Collision. It's in District 2, Tom Thompson in the Riverside neighborhood. This is north of the Walmart on 29th Street in Bryant, and directly across the street from the new truck stop, which is going in here next to Bryant and Riverside Drive. So this is the new Tractor Supply, this is a new truck stop, and then it's that little, I shouldn't say little, it's about 2.5 acres, but it's that rectangle in here. Zoning is CG, General Commercial. 8 notifications were mailed out. The owner of number 8 next to it came in on Friday and talked to me a little bit. I explained to him what the business was, and I guess he just was a little bit opposed. He wasn't sure what his plans were for his property yet, and I think was just maybe a little bit concerned, so he that does count as one opposition on number 8. This is the concept plan that the applicant has provided us, so it's approximately 16,100 square feet, and you can see the parking areas on the property. There'll be a chain link fence going around the building. So staff had just a few concerns because of the apartments to the north. The applicant was very cooperative, and we talked about this a little more. So number one, they've agreed to a couple conditions that we're recommending. Number one, there is no outdoor vehicle repair taking place, and that there's no bay doors ever along the north side. If if they ever sold this in 20 years and a new applicant came in, we could reconsider it, but basically the north side. So they gave us some sample elevations. Again, these could change, but east actually is the real north here. So you can see that the north side is going to be the storefront, not the vehicle repair area. So based on that, staff's in support of the request. This is a very, more of a clean operation. They have other locations in San Angelo. And again, the fact that all of the work will be done indoors, I think was, we're confident that this is, when you're looking from the apartments, this is what you're going to see. You're not going to see down here. So this is north at the subject property, south of the subject property. Again, sidewalk cutouts here as well. So similar to the other case, they would have to put in a sidewalk that would be again through the building permit phase. There's the apartments on 33rd Street. So you've got commercial on 3 sides already, and then to the east, that will be a future commercial development unless he rezones it. So there's definitely more potential commercial for this neighborhood. So staff recommends no outdoor work or bay doors facing the north side to mitigate impacts. They will comply with all of the zoning ordinance. There was, I think on the concept plan, it showed 20 feet setback from Bryant. It needs to be 25, so they will need to push that building back when they come in for a permit. And then adjacent to North Bryant, this is a major arterial road designed to accommodate large traffic volumes, and I think it'll be a compatible neighbor with the Tractor Supply and the truck stop already across the street. Staff recommends approval of CEU 2207, subject to 5 conditions of approval. So the properties generally conform with the CG standards. They will. All lighting, if provided, shall be fully shielded. They didn't show any lighting plan, but this is basically just put shields on the, caps on the lights. The applicant shall obtain all required permits from permits and inspections. All vehicle repair and maintenance shall be conducted inside the enclosed building, and no service garages or bay doors shall be installed along the north elevations of any buildings or structures facing West 33rd Street. And then the note about time of permit, the applicant will be required to submit a site plan showing the building is 25 feet back from North Bryant Street, or request a variance. Any questions or comments on this one?
Can you go back to, excuse me, the drawing?
Sure.
Okay, so go one up. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Oh.
The other.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
The other up, okay. So on the.
So east is actually north. So the one on the top is the north elevation.
Okay, and so how is that building, if you'll take me back to that other drawing now, so how is the build, does it face 33rd Street? Does it face inside the parking lot? I'm confused on that.
The applicant's here to verify what I've stated, but my understanding is the top picture is what you're going to see from 33rd Street from the apartments.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
But maybe mirrored.
Which will be the main entrance of the building.
Okay, on 33rd.
Yeah. I was wondering the same thing. Anyone else have questions? All right, we're going to open it up for public comment.
Okay, great, thank you. Joe Dell, Cross Development, 4336 Marsh Ridge Road, Carrollton, Texas. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Thank you, Commission. Here to answer any questions, and naturally would ask you to support or approve the conditional use permit. Answer the questions on the layout of the building. So this is just a rendering of a sample building, but the east elevation is actually the north elevation. That's what will face 33rd Street. And then what you see is the south elevation is actually the east-facing elevation, which will be shielded by the fencing. The bay doors on the south elevation is actually the east elevation. The north elevation that's labeled is actually the west elevation, so it will front Bryant predominantly, is that long section, and then the west elevation is the south elevation, which will face which back up the Tractor Supply.
Glad you've got that all together, yeah.
So if you look at the site plan, the front of the building that has the signage with all the windows is the retail look of the building that will face 33rd Street. And then the more industrial look will be really the one that will face Bryant. The longest run will be that what's called the north elevation, but is actually the west elevation. And then the south and west are the ones that will be surrounded by the storage parking, which I think this was up, is that right? Oh, I'm going the wrong way, maybe. Okay,
Go back the other
all
way.
up. Which one was that? Was this back?
Yep.
There we go.
Keep going.
Okay. What you see is the parking stalls, that L shape around the building. Those are the two in the detail bay in the back and the parts bay. Those are all that are what are on the other elevations. Your west and north that are labeled are actually east and south. It's super confusing, and apologize for the misorientation of the directions there. Mo, would answer any other questions you may have.
No, that was great.
So the north elevation is actually the west elevation, and that's what you will see driving down Bryant.
Correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
And so you've really kind of oriented the entrance interior to the property, to the east side.
Correct. The east elevation is the north elevation. The entrance comes off of
Kind of in that
West 33rd Street.
kind of in that top corner.
Correct. Yeah, so I guess that top corner is the approach. And, we took that into consideration for distance from the intersection back to the edge of the lot. Probably realized being an intersection, trying to get an approach off of Bryant with TxDOT is not probably a feasible thing to try to do. And so...
So is there a sewer line or a water main?
Yes, there's
on
a
that?
couple challenges with the project, which we're going to correct as we come in for our building permits. Is this the little flashlight button that?
Just
Okay.
hold it down.
So there's a drainage easement here for TxDOT that will be redone with TxDOT, because right now, all of the water in this area sheds from the north or the northeast onto this property and then captures and funnels into a TxDOT drain pipe that runs into the highway. So we have to capture all of this water that comes across, and we're going to run it down, and these aren't construction plans, but they're in the works. We're going to run it through a detention ditch into our detention basin, retain it, and then any overflow will be piped back to the TxDOT. So we'll capture all of that. And then there is an existing sewer easement that runs all the way down Bryant and then across. It kind of looks, you can see it's labeled there briefly, sewer easement. Right now, the sewer line comes up Bryant, and then it also cuts across here and then comes up and over to here. So we will actually relocate the sewer line that cuts across the property up and over to reconnect, to clean that up as well.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Thank you. All right. Anyone else have questions or want to share thoughts or make a motion?
I move to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Text amendment. City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments. A, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Planning and Development of the City Code of Ordinances, Exhibit A, Zoning Ordinance, adding Section 205, Site Plan Review, to establish a formal site plan review process and ensure compliance with recent changes to state law.
Well, good morning, Planning Commission. Aaron Benoit, Assistant Director of Planning and Development Services. This morning, I'm going to present to you our site plan ordinance, which basically has these goals that we've kind of laid out to try to explain why we're doing this. So the first goal is we really don't have an established codified process for our site development. They're kind of all over in our ordinances, and so this is one spot that we're trying to say, developers, here's what we're going to say that you need. Here are the basics for how to develop a site and do a site plan. It's also trying to provide some consistency, as well as just here's what the general review requirements are, how it sets a timeline for city staff to get reviews that meets our state laws, which is compliance with the House Bill 3167, which some of you probably have heard as the shot clock bill, and they modified it to not just be plats to be reviewed within 30 days, but development and site construction plans to be reviewed by city governments within 30 days. And so we're trying to put this into our code to become compliant. And then the last thing is provide 2 tiers of site plans instead of everybody being the same. Have one tier that basically is new construction or major expansions, and so like the Caliber Collision, they will be a major site plan. But then if you are doing a small addition, or maybe you're putting some canopies over some existing parking, those would be minor site plans. They wouldn't have to go to the full extent to upgrade or update their entire site. And so those are just some of the major things that we're looking at. It is designed to, as we've heard from the development community, sometimes after their plat process, they'd like to go ahead and lock in or be vested in the site development rights. This actually gives a process to do that instead of having to do your building permit right at the same time. We still offer that. If you want to do your site plan concurrently with your building plan, you can. But some developers, especially those that are looking from outside of San Angelo wanting to come in, they may look at 18 months in advance to say, all right, we want to lock in this site, and maybe the stormwater ordinance or some other ordinance changes in between there. Well, they vested their rights in to that previous ordinance that the city has. So currently, we have a 10-day review process that we go through with staff with all of our site plans. Basically, if the site plan is turned in the week prior, the next week, the city staff review it and give comments back out to the development community about if it's meets our standards or if there's something that needs to be changed. Again, a site plan would be valid for up to 18 months in advance, and then say they pulled a building permit, then it would be good for another 18 months. Now, there are probably some cases, and you can probably think about some of our larger apartment complexes or things like that, or maybe even a Shannon project, they say, well, is 36 months enough for them? We do have some ways that we can extend that through our planning director, that he can extend that as need be. And this does actually will meet the House Bill 3167 standards, that we have basically now just 3 ways we can answer back to an applicant: approved, approved with conditions, or disapproved. They don't give us a whole lot of give and take on that, but that approved with conditions, and we have a revision timeline that we've built into ours. It's just kind of our site plan process. If you wanted to put it on a process, where it triggers something, the staff does the review, they send that review to the applicant. If they have to revise their site plan, they can send it back to us. We send it back out for review, and then it's got an approved site plan that has a digital stamp on it, and we can stamp their hard copies as well if they choose to, and so that they have that in their pocket. You can see the different groups that review this, so all the way from our planning staff, engineering, streets, waters, building permits, and our fire marshal office. They're the ones that typically look at what's going on the site. Does anything need to happen on the site? So we have that kind of time frame within us. You see that the blue arrows that come back, sometimes those revisions, if they're significant, take a little bit of time and come back to us from the applicant, and we kind of put that's the applicant time frame. Everything else is a staff time frame. So compliance, again, we talked about the 30 days. We're going to have a 10-day turnaround for our processes, particularly with site plans. Some of our bigger plans that don't come into site plans, like water utility plans or a lift station, some of those plans do take up to that 30-day, but we're going to be in compliance with that. Again, it gives those approvals of approved conditions, or denied. And so approved with conditions, very similar to our plat processes that we do currently. So if there's a condition to install a water main or to install something, it could still be approved with conditions, so they've got it locked in. They just don't have to do those conditions until they actually pull the building permit and have those completed at the certificate of occupancy. If it's denied, we allow revisions up to 60 days without a new application, so that we're not charging them twice. They get those revisions in so that we can re-review those under the same review cycle, if you will. They're not having to do another application. Again, it created the 2 different tiers. Here's kind of what triggers what tier. New construction of a principal building, and I use the word principal building. You'll see later, if there's a new structure that's an accessory building, it may not trigger a major site plan depending on its size. Conversion of a residential use or structure to a non-residential use. So if we've got a commercial property that goes now to a commercial property, obviously we want to look at it to make sure it conforms to the commercial guidelines. Expansion of a principal structure or expansion in land area use. And the exception is single-family and two-family residential construction would still only have a site plan under the building code, not all the other codes that we have. So they've always had one under the building codes. We're going to allow those to stay in the single and two-family residential codes, where everything else will be looked at, like multifamily and up is looked at as the commercial codes. So a minor site plan, it's an accessory use which is incidental to established commercial development, resulting in no change in use, no increase in traffic or business activity. So, if it's used for storage, or maybe it's used for parking, or, something that's accessory to even the office staff that are just going to be using that, not more customers, if you will. Height and placement doesn't violate the zoning ordinance. The gross floor area is less than 50% of the existing floor area. And then no more than 5,000 square feet of impervious surface. So that's really kind of designed for those smaller businesses that are just, hey, it's time for us to add on a little bit. We're not really changing our use. It's probably not going to be new retail space, but I got to add a few more offices for staff, or I've got to add a break room or something like that. This is going to be then a minor site plan and not have to go to the same height as a major site plan. So Here's the, approval, expiration, and extension. So once it's approved by the city, again, we will stamp it. Site plan's valid for 18 months. If a building permit is secured, we can extend another 18 months. So we will be working with contractors, so they're very strategic with that, so they know what's going to happen and kind of go on, because as we all know, there are times, there's supply shortages out there. There are things that happen to a site that they start digging in one place and realize, oh, that unmarked sewer main is there, and we've got to do something different. And so we are willing to work with the developers to help keep that a valid site plan. So in the text itself, we are going to recommend some changes. This has gone to the Development Task Force over the last couple of years, just in concept, and each time it comes back as more defined. The last time was the actual ordinance text, and we do have these kind of changes or clarifications in there. And so I don't know that you have it in front of you, but section B6, the sentence was, "This includes but not limited to review of the following," and so we're actually changing that to just say that it's limited to a review of the following in a major site plan, so that there's no confusion, just kind of a clarifying thing. Section B, 7A, IE, it talked about a so much impervious surface. We're basically saying, no, we want it to meet whatever our current stormwater ordinance is at that time. If it changes, if stormwater ordinance changes later in the future, this is a little more clear that it's okay, whatever the current stormwater ordinance is at that time. Section C3, the sentence was, "This does not preclude any authorized reviewer from requesting any other necessary information to ensure compliance." Our development group thought, well, that was very open-ended. Well, what if they want to want something that may not really be due to a site plan? And so we tried to narrow that down, that the authorized reviewer may request additional information to complete the application for review to meet the site plan requirements, so that it's very specific to site plan items. And then section F, section F deals with, once the project's completely over and we're ready to do a CO check, we're out there, staff, this gives a little bit of variances because, again, site conditions can change. And so we had it to where it was basically, it had to be almost exact to whatever the original site plan was, but this gives a little bit of variance in there. And so A is an increase in the building footprint of any building by more than 10%. So maybe they had a design change. Instead of going back through a major site plan review, we can go ahead and approve it this way instead of going back through another cycle and possibly delaying some things. B, we're actually going to kind of delete because it's probably a little redundant because we probably have that covered in some other ordinances, and here it may not make that much sense as far as a site plan. How does that impact a site plan? So we've kind of agreed to delete that. C and D talks about setbacks and separations, and I bring those two up and you can read those, but F is kind of all right, it can't violate the building code, and so if those setbacks get within a building code distance that are a problem, the building code takes over. But what the developer's saying, well, we may have said they're going to be 30 feet apart, but we've scooted them to 25 feet apart, and that's still within the building code. We're okay with that. And then a reduction in the ratio of off-street parking and loading spaces to gross floor area in the structures. We've just kind of added, I don't know that we even tweaked that one. I think that one was the same one. So F is kind of our catch-all. It was kind of added to, all right, you can't violate something else in our building code or the city ordinances. And as far as I know, I think we've addressed all the items from the Development Task Force. I think Mr. Gully might be the only representative here today from the Development Task Force to talk about some of those things. The recommendations are, the city has discussed this with the Development Task Force over the past few years. Our recommendation is to approve with those previous slides of text changes, unless y'all have other questions or clarifications that y'all would like to make. Any questions for me?
I don't have any specific questions. You were talking about HB 3167. Does that apply to building permits as well?
That's, right now, it just has the word development plans, and I think each city has decided to interpret that differently. We don't have any building plans that go over that time frame. Our standard commercial plans is 21 days. Right now, our average is less than 10 days. Our residential plans is 2 days, and our average is 1.3 days on our residential. And so our staff do an amazing job over in building
impressive.
permits to get through those projects very quickly. But our city right now does not indicate that dictates over building plans themselves.
Okay.
There was a bill in the last legislative session to apply this specifically to building permits, and that failed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's always the building permit. It's not the site review.
Well,
That causes
it could be.
problems.
I
It
think
could be,
in
I guess.
some cases, some developers kind of just combine the two as one.
Yeah.
And we really are separating them as two different entities at times. And I think that actually helps delineate some of the responsibilities and where people come in to review things.
I've read through all of the changes that you made, and I think it looks really good. It helps clarify quite a bit. So, thank you for your efforts.
Aaron, I had a question.
Anyone else have questions for the staff?
That's okay. One of the slides you mentioned, securing a building permit, is this just for staff's knowledge? Does that mean building permit issued, or just the building permit has been applied for and it's in the review process? I think secured means it's been issued,
Yes.
but just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Russell Gully with SKG, we're supportive of this as is updated and revised. I guess it kind of triggered a question when Mr. Vanoy was talking about development plans. Does this also include engineering plans when we submit water and sewer and street designs to engineering now?
That's a good question. That's one of those that is,
It's a gray area.
it's a gray area, and it hasn't been determined for sure.
Because nobody from engineering's here, so I can't pick on them too much, but, we just had one of the city engineers leave, so, Aaron talks about how great the building permit and all those reviews are, and he's correct there, that the engineers are engineers and they're busy and they got a lot going on, so 3 to 4 weeks is kind of at best from when we get plan review comments back from them. So I don't know if it's an issue or not. We'll kind of keep working through that, and we try to get them in as soon as we can and work through that with the engineers. But we're supportive of this, and thanks staff for working with us.
Thank you, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this? I'm going to close public comment. Do you want us to vote in support, or what do we need to do as a board here to move forward?
Yes, this is a formal text amendment to the zoning ordinance, so it would be a motion to approve the changes to the zoning ordinance as recommended,
Okay.
if that's your intent.
I would make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 7-0. The next item is public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, and begin by stating their name and address or single-member district. Please limit all remarks to less than 3 minutes. All right, we're going to close the public comment section. Director's report.
Yeah, I only had one thing just to note for you all. At their last meeting, the city council did approve the changes to the right-of-way and pavement width ordinances, as we alluded to earlier in the meeting, as well as the sidewalk ordinance. So those are finally done with those. So I think that makes everybody happy.
Very good. Future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, April 18th, 2022. Adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. It's 10:40 a.m.
Thank you all.